Let us close the eyes for a moment, remembering all pervading divinity and all the masters. We will begin with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine protect us all. May the Divine nourish us with wisdom and knowledge. May we attain brilliance and understanding with our discussion. May there be no discord among us. May there be more love and peace within and everywhere. Om. Amen. I humbly bow to one formless God. I bow to sage Patanjali and all the saints and sages of all times and places. Humbly I bow to lineage of Kriya Yoga masters. Feeling presence of God in all of you, I bow to you all. Good afternoon and good evening. In our previous class, we finished our discussion about 8 limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Now, in today's class, we will discuss about the pranayama. Yama, niyama, they are more related to our day-to-day life when we live with the society, the niyamas, and yama when we live a disciplined life. These two are more external aspect of our life or yoga. Then asana, pranayama, further 6 we practice individually. Asana is the yogic posture. So today we are going to discuss most important aspect of our yoga practice, which is pranayama, which leads us to meditative state. Pranayama, and little bit we will discuss also about the pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. So pranayama in the second book, 49th verse, is speaking about the pranayama. It says, Tasmin sati shwas prashwasayoho gati vichhedah pranayamah. What is pranayama? When the posture has been mastered, that means after perfecting our posture or asana, now the stage comes, then we can regulate the breath. We can go further from external to little bit more internal aspect of our spiritual life. So when we perfect the master the asana or posture, then regulation of breath, which is to break the flow or movement of inhalation and exhalation, follows. So here, gati vichhedah pranayama. So we'll try to understand it more. What is the meaning of gati vichhedah? In this sutra, sage Patanjali is explaining that this pranayama is actually a compound word. It is having 2 words, prana and ayama. Prana means breath, or you can say principle or life energy. Prana also is known as the wind. Prana means strength. Prana means Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva. They are also known as prana. Prana means that which brings perfection. And also another meaning of prana is being with the soul. Because remember, if there is no breath, There is no life. So body and the soul, the form and formless, how they are connected with the help of breath. And breath is associated with prana. So being with the soul also is one meaning of prana. Strictly, prana is not really breath. Breath is much grosser because prana means life energy and it is the real essence of our life. In ordinary day to day speaking, we always say that breath and prana, they are same. We interchangeably use them to some extent. But here, breath is just inhalation and exhalation. Pranayama is much more than that. So here, prana is the life force. Ayama means to extend, to lengthen, to restrain, or to grow long. Therefore, pranayama ordinarily means breath control. It's not simple breathing in and out, but it is breath control, regulation. That's why it is a pranayama. In the Yogi Yagyavalk, a yogic scripture, it is said about this pranayama that it is, I think, it in Yogi Yagyavalkya, sixth chapter, second verse. It says, Pranayama tu Vigyeya Rechaka Puraka Kumbhakaihi. Pranayama is known by exhalation, inhalation, and retention of breath. So you see the difference when we say in day-to-day life, breath control. So breath, if you think the breath and prana are same, they are not really. Breath is only inhalation and exhalation. Ordinarily we do. Every moment we are breathing. But when we retain the breath intentionally or with willpower, so that retention, which is called kumbhaka, then only we can say it is pranayama. So rechaka, exhalation, puraka means kumbhaka, puraka means inhalation, and kumbhak is here retention. So inhalation and exhalation is a natural process in every living being. Pranas are the constituents of the subtle or the astral body. Because when we talk about three types of body, gross body, subtle body, causal body, so prana is the part of subtle or astral body. And prana has multiple functions. This prana digests the food and it creates thirst. Prana connects the body and mind. The mind contains the willpower and the desire to work. And prana represents the ability or power to work. So one is desire and then ability or power to work. Therefore, mind is representing our Ichha Shakti because it has desire, willpower. And the prana is called as Kriya Shakti, power to work. And Sri Gurudev said, if there is no breath, there is no prana moving, then we are dead body. There is no Kriya, there is no activity possible. Therefore, the body, the mind, and the breath, they are correlated and connected through cause and effect. Remember, agitation in the body leads to agitation in the mind and breath. And calmness of the body also is seen through calmness of breath and mind. And you have experienced that when you are having breath control or pranayama technique, not only your mind, but your body also becomes very calm and tranquil. So breath indicates the state of mind of a person. I remember that Sri Gurudev very often looking at the person, how the person is breathing could tell the state of mind or emotional, different emotional states of the person. Here, Sage Patanjali is defining pranayama as the break or cessation. Right? If you remember, gati vicheda. Gati is the movement or speed, and vicheda means break. So, what is pranayama by definition? It is a break or cessation in inhalation and exhalation. So, we are inhaling, exhaling continuously, but when we give a gap, we give a break. Then it becomes pranayama because we are holding the breath or retaining the breath. So in this sutra, every seeker is taken from gross or physical aspect of sadhana towards the subtler aspect That means from body to breath. We perfected our body with some asana postures. Now, perfecting our breath. So, today we are going to discuss different aspects of pranayama. So, what are the different aspects of pranayama? We'll discuss in the next sutra, sutra number 50 in second. Before that, let me tell you that when we talk about pranayama, there are 10 different types of pranayama in classical texts. Mostly you can find these 10 classical or pranayam techniques in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Very basic technique of pranayama, we call it Anulom Vilom Pranayama or even Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, which is nothing but alternate breathing. We breathe from one nostril, retain, and from other nostril we exhale, and vice versa. So we balance the breath. There is also another pranayam called Bhastrika Pranayam, bellow breathing. Then third is Kapalabhati. Fourth is called Surya Bhedi Pranayama, that is vitality stimulating breath. Fifth is called Shitali Pranayama, cooling breath. Shitali Pranayama is practiced when a yogi feels it's very hot and in the ambience or atmosphere is very hot. To cool the body, they practice Shitali Pranayama. There is Sitkari Pranayama, hissing, like hissing breath. Seventh is called Ujjayi Pranayama. Ujjayi is the psychic breath. So when we inhale and exhale, there's a sound, a big sound. So that is called Ujjayi. Then eighth pranayam is called Bhramari Pranayam. Bhramari is like humming bee breath. We inhale and then there is sound like a bumblebee. Then ninth is called Murcha Pranayam, swooning breath. And 10th is Plavini or inundating breath. However, these are classical techniques of pranayama, but in Kriya Yoga, we do not practice any one of these. You might be surprised that what are we practicing? So now we'll discuss what really we practice, which is much more effective pranayam technique than these classical pranayams. So the next sutra tells about what we practice. But before that, let's understand a little bit more about this pranayam technique. Sutra 50 in the second book, it says, what are the different aspects of pranayam itself? Bahya abhyantara stambha vrittihi desha kala sankhya paridrashto dirgha sukshmaha. The external, internal, and suppressed or modification of breath is regulated by place, time, and number, and they become prolonged or subtle. What does it mean? As we discussed, three processes: exhalation, inhalation, and retention. So this retention of breath depends on three factors: place, time, and number of times we practice. So bahya vritti means rechaka, exhalation, outer or external aspect. Abhyantara vritti means puraka, inhalation, or inner or internal aspect of pranayama. And stambha vritti means kumbhaka, retention, suppression, or modification. So this is actual pranayama, retention. Now, it is said that when we practice pranayama, so three things. Bahya vritti means exhalation, inhalation, and retention. This retention is on both. After inhalation, we retain the breath. After exhalation also, we retain the breath, and it completes one pranayama. Little bit more we'll understand. The word here for retention of breath is used as kumbhaka. Kumbhaka, the etymological meaning of kumbhaka is kumbhe kam iva kumbhakam. Kumbha means pot. So like a pot of water is full, so also is the retention of breath. So when we say kumbhaka, means like a water pot is filled with water. So when we inhale, we fill the air in the lungs. and retain. So it is lungs are full of prana or breath. In the practice of breathing techniques, there is external holding, internal holding, and suppression of breath at both sides. So here, Sage Patanjali is explaining that pranayama also depends on three factors: desha, kala, sankhya, means the place where the breath is held, duration, and kala means duration of holding of or breathing, like a retention, how long you can retain, and sankhya, the number for measuring inhalation, exhalation, or duration. Sankhya also you can refer, like sometimes when they have ratio that inhale, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, then retain for 4 seconds or 8 seconds, and then exhalation in it. So there are different methods. So that's why it is said Desha Kala Sankhya. Here, breath can be held also in different chakras. Those who practice Kriya Yoga, they know that it is not just simple breathing or holding, but in each chakra, breath can be held. Or even in some special places of the body, breath can be held. So this is the technique of pranayama. And it is to be learned directly from the teacher. You cannot just go to internet or read in the book and practice, because you are playing with energy, pranic energy. So pranayama can also be dirgha. It can be prolonged or subtle. Like when we practice continuously, so our retention increases and we can practice for a longer period of time, then the breath becomes subtle. There are now, Sage Patanjali also has explained about these three aspects. So Guruji has given beautiful commentary on that, metaphorical meaning. There are also a spiritual meaning of pranayama. In this sutra, it is says Bahya Vritti. Bahya Vritti indicates here not exhalation only, but holding outside. After exhalation, we are holding the breath. So what does it mean? Bahya Vritti means holding outside the breath, means to experience divinity in all the external things. Bahya means external. So experience divinity in all the external things. It also means to keep the negative qualities out through exhalation and not letting them to come in. Then an abhyantara vritti, the second aspect, means holding inside. Holding inside means it is to experience divinity in inner thought or to bring love and calmness through inhalation. The real pranayama is that in which we feel not just breath work, but with inner feeling we practice. When we exhale, we feel that all the negative tendencies are departing away. When we inhale, we feel that all the positive qualities are entering within us and we are retaining them. And third aspect here is stambha vritti. Stambha vritti means to become free. Stambha means free from both and to experience calmness, means neither positive nor negative, but while holding, you become free from both the qualities and you are perfectly in balance, state of nothingness. And there we feel perfect calmness. Here, the one word desha, kala, sankhya, three things he has mentioned. So desha is also to be absorbed in love and calmness. And desha, because desh means place, so to feel divinity in all the places, not only within, but wherever we move, with whomever we live, we should feel divinity in all the places. Kala means to feel God consciousness at all the time. Every moment we should feel presence of God. That is Kala. This is aspect of pranayama. And Sankhya means number. That means to feel God in unity, duality, and multiplicity. So any number means unity when I am with myself, duality when I am with somebody else, or in multiplicity in this entire creation, I should feel presence of God. That is real inner meaning of pranayama. It's not just inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and then getting some calmness. The real purpose is to feel presence of divinity in Desha, Kala, and Sankhya. Also, Dirgha Pranayam, because the word Dirgha comes, Dirgha Pranayam is not a long pranayam only, but it is to see divinity and maintain composure for a longer period of time and become subtle. That means to go into subtle state of experience. It's not just 1 hour of Kriya Pranayam or continuous practice of breath control, but maintain that state of calmness and perceiving divinity as long as possible when we are in the world. That is the real meaning. Now, let's go a little bit more further for this pranayama. The next sutra, as I told you, that 10 different types of pranayama. So now, here in 51st sutra, it speaks about Kevala kumbhaka, which is a very special technique of pranayama, and that is what we practice in Kriya Yoga. In Kriya Yoga, we don't practice all those 10 different types of classical pranayam, but very special technique which is mentioned in ancient scriptures, that is called Kevala kumbhaka. That is what we practice. What is that technique? So in this sutra number 51, sage is telling Bahya Abhyantara Vishayakshepi Chaturtha. The fourth type of pranayama, because 3 aspects he already mentioned. Exhalation, inhalation, retention this is simple pranayam. So the fourth aspect he's telling, the fourth type of pranayam is that which goes beyond the sphere of external and internal. So here we are not only inhaling and exhaling, but we go beyond breath. In classical pranayams, we are not going because it is more related to a gross or physical breath. But the Kevala Kumbhaka is more related to psychic breath or our subtle breath. And here we practice in such a way that we go beyond inhalation and exhalation. We come to that state of perfect balance for a longer period of time. So what is this Bahya Abhyantar Vishayakshepi Chaturtha? Let's discuss it. The fourth pranayam. So 3 categories of pranayam practiced through indication of 3 things. As in the previous sutra we discussed, place, time, and number. These are the 3 types. So 3 categories of pranayam related to place, time, and number. Now, they are described as external, internal, and beyond. So there is only one Kevala. This complete cessation of movement is the fourth category. That means in 3 types of pranayam, which are dependent on place, time, and number, we are moving the breath, holding the breath, and experiencing some calmness. But fourth type, which is mentioned here, it is called Kevala. In this, the movement of breath is completely ceased. So that's why it is called fourth category of pranayam. In the previous sutra, there is a description of also 3 pranayam in another way, which is 3 aspects: Bahya, Abhyantar, Stambhan. So Rechaka, Puraka, and Kumbhaka. Exhalation, inhalation, retention. These are the 3. So in this sutra, says Patanjali is specifically telling of the fourth pranayam. That means this pranayam, which is known as Kevala Kumbhaka, it goes beyond exhalation, inhalation, even retention. Even retention, we go beyond these 3 aspects. And this pranayam is called Kevala Kumbhaka or sometimes Kevali Kumbhaka. It is a very special state or technique of pranayama. And in this pranayam, there is neither exhalation nor inhalation, but rather a natural suspension of breath. You don't need to forcefully retain or exhale, inhale, but very naturally, breath is suspended by practicing this. And this state comes through sincere practice of Kriya only. There are different pranayams in different schools one can learn, but this Kriya only teaches Kevala kumbhaka. Now, I'll tell you, this Kevala kumbhaka is mentioned in some of the scriptures, like Vashishta Samhita. So, what they say about this Kevala kumbhaka? In Vasishtha Samhita, it is said, Rechanam Puranam Muktva Sukham Yat Vayudharanam Pranayama Ayam Ityuktah Savai Kevala Kumbhaka. The comfortable retention of air without inhalation and exhalation is called Kevala Kumbhaka Pranayama. Here there is no force of retention. Naturally, we hold the breath without closing the nostrils even. And inhalation and exhalation also become so smooth that there is no force. So this technique is called Kevala Kumbhaka. In Yogi Yajnavalkya, as I said, it is said, Rechaka Puraka Kumbhake, three things are together. However, another scripture, Gheranda Samhita, a yogic text, it also speaks about Kevala Kumbhaka technique in the 5th chapter, 89th verse. Tasmat prane sthite dehe maranam naiva jayate vayuna घट संबंधे bhavet kevala kumbhakah. So long as the breath remains in the body, there is no death. When the full length of the wind or air is all confined in the body, nothing being allowed to go out, it is called kevala kumbhaka. So two things we understand here. Naturally, when we retain the breath and we don't exhale it, when we inhale, hold the breath, and we don't exhale it, so that natural holding without force is Kevala Kumbhaka. Second thing, what happens with this? So long as this breath remains in the body, means you retain the breath, there is no death. Because inhalation is life, exhalation is death. When you exhale, there is no breath in the body, the prana is disconnected, then there is death. So yogis, they retain the breath and prolong it, and they enter into the state of samadhi. So there is no the death which can touch them even. So this is Kevala Kumbhaka. Now, what happens? I'll not go into more detail of Kevala Kumbhaka, only the definition, because to practice and to learn, you have to be initiated into Kriya Yoga, and then you can practice it. What happens when we practice this Kevala Kumbhaka or this pranayam technique? So, Sage Patanjali is telling here, in the next sutra, it says, Tatah kshiyate prakash avaranam. Tatah kshiyate prakash avaranam. Then, when we perfect this pranayam technique, which is called Kevala Kumbhaka, then from that, the covering of light is destroyed. The covering of light is destroyed. That means the self-luminous soul shines without covering. We all know that the soul is covered by 5 sheaths. Soul is covered by many coverings or quilts, or even you can say our mind is covered with ignorance. So when these layers of ignorance, different layers which are covering the soul, which is self-luminous, it is removed by practice of pranayama, the Kevala Kumbhaka, then what happens? The self-luminous soul shines. Means the light, the coverings are destroyed, covering of light are destroyed, then light emanates. So how do we see that light? In this verse has a little bit more metaphorical meaning. So let's discuss this. Tata kshiyate prakash avaranam. What is this avaran or covering? Shri Lahiri Mahasaya said that as a result of practice of yoga, the covering of light is eliminated. So light remains, but the covering we remove, so only light remains. As a result, there is no more misery or affliction. So through practice of pranayama, as described in the earlier sutra we discussed, says Patanjali is telling there are two important benefits which will be described, which we'll discuss in this sutra and the next sutra. Two sutras talks about the benefit of practicing Kevala kumbhaka. So in this sutra it is said Prakasha Avarana Kshiyate. The covering of light is eliminated. So Prakasha is light, illumination and knowledge. It is also the light of soul, which is self-luminous. Ignorance seemingly covers up the knowledge. And this is what mentioned in Bhagavad Gita in the 5th chapter, verse number 15, where Lord Krishna is telling, Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantava. The power of God does not create the action or reaction of any person. God does not act, nor does he make contact with the fruits of action. Rather, one's own nature leads to action. God is neutral. God is just like Father who is there to take care of the child. God does not reward or punish. God does not act or react. But God has given us mind, intellect to decide what we want to do, what we want to avoid. Because of our own mind and our own desires, which is part of mind, we create our own karma, mental, physical, and verbal action. And action, they bring result. God is not responsible for that. God has given us freedom to choose. So, Prakash Avaran. Here, Ajnana or ignorance is covering the knowledge. So, this is the Prakash Avaran. So, Avaran means here it is Ajnana. Then comes little bit more explanation about this. By practicing Kriya Pranayama, also Lahiri Mahasaya has mentioned that the impurities are eliminated. So all the toxins from the body physically, all the mental impurities also we remove by practice of pranayama. And when all these impurities are removed, our ignorance is removed, what remains? Then only self-luminous soul remains. And that is what it is said here, that the covering of light means whatever is clouding this inner light, it is removed and the light manifests, which is always there. So this is first benefit. Then another benefit of pranayama, what happens when we practice this pranayama technique? It says in the next sutra, sutra number 53, pranayama bestows good concentration. Dharanasu cha yogyata manasah. The fitness of the mind for concentration is attained. So on one hand, we remove the impurities, ignorance by practice of pranayama. On the other hand, we get good concentration. So the mind is purified, mind becomes more focused, more concentrated. Dharana sucha yogyata. So the mind becomes qualified for concentration. And so these two benefits we get by practicing the Kriya, the pranayama. And through repeated practice of pranayama, one attains the power of concentration of the mind. Never think that just by practicing one time or few times, but it's a continuous practice. Then you will find your mind becomes one-pointed or very much focused, concentrated mind. Pranayama enhances the mental ability to concentrate. So long as the mind does not come in contact with this stable object, it remains restless. And we see that in day-to-day life, mind is constantly occupied by many desires, many objects of the senses, and it is restless, turbulent. But we give breath to play with. So mind is more focused on the breath, and then slowly it becomes completely free from restlessness. So ordinary mind is restless and difficult to keep quiet. Once it knows about the one unchanging, steady and stable entity, then it starts becoming more attracted to it. So when it becomes more calm and the light emanates, then we see the mind also becomes attuned to see the light within and wants to know that what is my real identity. Through practice of pranayama, when the immoralities of mind are eliminated, the obstacles on the path of love and knowledge are destroyed, and gradually one perceives inner light, calmness, concentration. The psychological practice of pranayama brings the physiological state of good concentration. So both are connected, body and mind. We'll discuss a little bit more about the next step. So this is just pranayama, which gives some idea. Now, apart from pranayama, there is a fifth limb of yoga among the 8 limbs, which is called Pratyahara. Pratyahara means withdrawal of senses, which is also important aspect even when we practice Kriya. So we practice Pratyahara, means we withdraw the senses from sense objects by practicing various postures or mudras. So what is that Pratyahara, withdrawal of senses? Says Patanjali is explaining, Swa Vishaya असंप्रयोगे चित्तस्य स्वरूप अनुकार इव इंद्रियाणाम प्रत्याहारः. Pratyahara or the obstruction or abstraction, because we restrict our senses. Pratyahara abstraction is that by which the senses do not come into contact with their objects and follow, as it were, the nature of the mind. As we discussed, the nature of mind is always to desire. Mind always wants to enjoy the objects of the senses and this world. Now, mind is so subtle, it cannot go directly to the object of senses. So it employs the sense organs in between. So sense organs are the agents. Sense organs come in contact with the objects of senses or object of the world, and they bring this experience to the mind. So ultimately, mind enjoys using the sense organs. When we talk about controlling the mind, regulating the mind and senses are also correlated. So what we do in the practice of yoga, we disconnect the sense organs, withdraw them from the object of the senses, then it helps the mind to become calm. Otherwise, the mind also all the time wants to move away with the senses. It slips, it wants to enjoy. So we introvert the sense organs by practicing pratyahara, and eventually we also introvert the mind, because when we disconnect the mind from the world through the senses, because senses are in between, so we introvert this or withdraw the senses, so mind cannot go directly to enjoy the objects of senses. So these two things, mind control, it is known as shama, and sense control is called dhamma. In Vedanta, we practice shama and dhamma. So स्वविषय संप्रयोगे चित्तस्य स्वरूप अनुकार इव इंद्रियाणाम प्रत्याहार. What is pratyahara? The sense organ have no contact with their own objects. In other words, the eyes, the tongue, etc. have no connection with the sight or taste. As a result, the chitta, the mind or memory, becomes its own, and that is known as pratyahara, withdrawal or abstraction. So in this sutra, Sage Patanjali is telling the nature of pratyahara, withdrawal. It is the fifth limb of yoga. The indriyas or sense organs empowered with the mind and soul, and they move and roam in the world of sense objects, searching for pleasure or seeking the presence of divinity. It is both. Extrovert organs or the restless mind do not give the taste of divinity. They bring attraction and attachment. So here, the sense organs withdrawing themselves from their own objects bring conservation of energy. It helps the mind to be introverted and experience the beauty of soul. Metaphorically, the mind is withdrawn from the lower chakras and established in the higher chakra. So, if we think about this word Pratyahara, we split in Sanskrit, so it becomes Prati, A, Hru, and Nya. So, Pratyahara. Pratyahara is the path of return to its original state through withdrawal from its ordinary path. And what are the different chakras and how they are connected with the sense perception? So you can see here in this simple table, they're also connected with the chakras. So we practice Kriya Yoga. So here you see the 5 lower chakras. They are connected with 5 gross elements, and they are also connected with organs of action and perception. So the Mooladhara chakra, the bottom center, is earth element, and it is connected with nose. So, and what is the sense object or the tanmatra? Smell. Through the nose we smell, and Mooladhara Prithvi Tattva, earth. Earth has smell because you can smell the earth. Swadhisthana chakra is related to water element, and it is connected with the tongue. I'm giving here sense organ of perception, but it is also connected to sense organs of action. But here just perception we are talking. So tongue is connected with the taste. So Swadhisthana chakra is related to taste. Manipur chakra, navel center, is fire element, and it is connected with eyes. So it helps the perception is sight. Anahata, the heart center, is air element. It is connected with air, skin, and it gives touch sensation. The throat center, Vishuddha, is connected with the space element, and it is related to ears, and it is connected with the sound tanmatra or perception. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord has talked about this Pratyahara, control over the withdrawal of the senses, you can say. It is in the 2nd chapter, verse number 58. Yada sangharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvashah indriyanindriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratisthita. When a devotee fully withdraws his or her attention or senses from sense objects, then he or she is practicing Pratyahara, and then only he or she is established in wisdom. So who is established in wisdom? Who can fully withdraw the sense organs from its objects of senses. And the example is given of a tortoise. Just like in the time of danger, the tortoise withdraws its limbs into the shell. So this is the example that we withdraw our senses from the external world, and they cannot come into the contact of sense objects, and this is called the Pratyahara. But it is not with force. With understanding only we can practice it. Otherwise we end up in some trouble. Sometimes people try to forcefully practice some discipline, and it does not work in long term. So Pratyahara is withdrawing the mind from Mooladhara to Vishuddha chakra. Externally we say sense objects, but these sense objects are connected with the 5 lower chakra. That means our mind should be withdrawn from bottom center to throat center and then go beyond. So for these 5 chakras we cross, we withdraw the mind from here, elevate the mind by practice of pranayama and pratyahara both, and we remain in Agya chakra and Sahasrara chakra, means soul center and above in the fontanel. So when one starts practicing pranayama, the attention is introverted from the objects to elements. Because when we go into the inner concentration, so from objects we go to the element within, and from elements to the source of everything, that is soul, in soul center, and then we go beyond soul in the fontanelle, become one with God. In this state, the mind assumes the form of divine. And it is because of the extreme closeness with God. So follow the path of evolution and upward movement to fontanelle. And for this, you have to withdraw the extrovert mind and senses both. So this is the practice of Pratyahara. When we practice this both, not only the mind becomes calm and quiet, body becomes steady, we go beyond breath, and there is no more connection with the external world, or objects of the senses remain out, completely detached, and we can transcend to a state of perfect union with God. So gradually you get the ability of beholding the vision of the beloved when you practice this pranayam and pratyahara. What is the benefit of pratyahara? Because pranayama, we discussed the two benefits: to remove the ignorance and all the layers of impurities and get good concentration. Now, what is the benefit of Pratyahara? So here Sage Patanjali is telling in the next verse, next sutra. Next sutra is sutra number 55. Sage is saying the benefit of perfection of sense withdrawal, Pratyahara, tatah parama vashyate indriyanam. Then follows the supreme mastery over the senses. So when we practice Pratyahara, we get perfect control over the senses. And what does it mean? The sense organs are not our enemy. Very often Sri Gurudev mentioned, God has not given us the sense organs for our destruction, but for our evolution. God gave us all these senses so that we will evolve. We enjoy the beauty of God, presence of God through these senses, and then we go beyond the sense organs and remain one with God. So they are not for destruction. But what happens? Because they are extrovert, so they should be trained. The senses should be trained, disciplined, and brought under control. When the sense organs are very disciplined, they help one to progress on the path to achieve success and to experience divinity everywhere. So in this state, the sense organs are freed from play of mind with likes and dislikes. As we all know, we have discussed previously, the mind always remains in two states. Either it likes something or it dislikes something. And whatever we like, we want to hold on to that. What we dislike, we want to go away from that. In both cases, we are in bondage. So senses also are employed, because when mind likes something, it engages the sense organs more into that. And when mind dislikes something or hates something, then it tries to distract the senses in other way. However, so when we practice Kriya Pranayam, when we practice Pratyahara, then we become free from the play of mind and all these likes and dislikes. So then the sense organs act and function naturally and neutrally. Remember, a biased and partial mind brings disorder in life. Most of the problems related to mind, like anxiety, frustration, stress, or so-called mental conditions, why we are going through that? Because our mind is not disciplined, and because of that the sense organs, we do not have any discipline. So when our observation is clear, disorder is removed. So practice Pratyahara daily, but give divine food ahara to the sense organs with love and devotion. Because the sense organs need care and nourishment also. So this Pratyahara and Pranayama. Just to give a little bit more about Pratyahara, as we practice Kriya, there are certain techniques we practice in which we withdraw the senses. The simplest thing, we keep the eyes closed when we meditate. So eyes closed means we are not looking outside, but we are looking within. And when we close the eyes, so our eyes are not distracted. So this is also practice of withdrawal of senses. We hear divine sound only. We do not get distracted by the external sound. We practice some mudras. So in total, we withdraw our senses, we withdraw our mind, then we disconnect ourselves from the objects of the world, and then we focus on elements, and then we go beyond elements in the chakra, and we meditate in perfect calmness. So pranayama and pratyahara, these two go together, and they are very important aspects of our life if we want to regulate the mind, if you want to regulate our sense organs. Little bit more about the pranayama technique. How does it really work? So I'll tell you in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, second chapter, second verse, it is said, Chale vate chalam chittam nishchalam nishchale bhavet yogi sthanutvam apnoti tato vayu nirodhet. If the breath is restless, then mind is also restless. When the breath becomes calm and quiet, mind becomes tranquil. Because breath and mind both are causally connected, if we want to control our mind, then we have to control the breath, because this is much easier. If we think about these two, our mind is very subtle instrument. We have no control over the mind. But breath is grosser aspect than the mind. So it is easy to control the breath. We can take long, deep breath. We can take shallow breath. We can hold the breath. But is it possible to hold the mind? Answer is no. That is why in the practice of yoga, we control the mind by controlling the breath. And as the breath slows down, the mind also becomes quiet. I'll give some example from day-to-day life. And Shri Gurudev has mentioned in his book, Essence of Kriya Yoga. You can observe it in your daily life. Normal breathing rate for average human being is 15 times in 1 minute. And when we become angry, the breath rate suddenly increases up to 38, even 40 breath in 1 minute. When we are doing some heavy work, lifting some load, the breath increases. When a person is having physical relation with the partner, again breath increases to 24 breath per minute. When we are sleeping at night, in the deep sleep state, breath reduces. As Gurudev used to mention, we take long, deep and slow breath. So breath rate reduces up to 10 to 12 breath per minute. And when we are very happy, very joyful, you just observe. We can observe our breath is only 8 or 9 breath per minute. So as the breath is reduced, the state of mind also changes. And you can feel that with the changing of breath, your emotions are also changing. Externally or in day-to-day life, what happens? As soon as this state of mind changes, we see the effect on the breath. But in the path of Kriya Yoga, we reverse this scale. We start regulating the breath through a very special technique as we discussed today, Kevala kumbhaka. We bring the breath to slow down, a state of very slow, feeble breath. Can you imagine how much your breath rate is when you practice this special technique of Kriya Pranayama, which is nothing but Kevala kumbhaka? The breath is within 5 minutes of practice, the breath reduces to only 2.5 or maximum 3 breath in 1 minute. Imagine If your breath rate is 8 or 9, you are very happy and joyful. What will happen if your breath is only 3 in 1 minute or less than 3? You are in supreme state of bliss, which you cannot explain even. So this is the practice of Kevala Kumbhaka. And by regulating the breath, when we get better control over the mind, slowly the mind follows the course where we want to keep it. It remains in the state of concentration, and from concentration, which is one thought, it goes to meditation, which means no thought. We often talk about meditating. Meditation is not easy because mind is very restless. So unless we work on the mind, and how to work on mind? We have to work on the breath. And by that, working on breath, pacifying the mind, going beyond mind, then only we can say we are in meditation. Meditation means we become observer. No attention on breath, no attention on anything. We go beyond all conditionings of body and mind. So Sage Patanjali has explained about Pranayama, Pratyahara, they both help us to go beyond body and mind. And then only comes the next state, which is called dhyana. So we discussed in the previous class 8 limbs: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So yama, niyama are just the rules we have to practice in day-to-day life. Make your body fit by practicing some asana or posture. Once you become little bit more strong by practicing some posture, and in Kriya practice, everything is included. Yama Niyam is also part of Kriya. Then only we can say we are ready to practice breath regulation, which is nothing but pranayama. In pranayama, especially in Kriya Yoga, we learn and practice Kevala Kumbhaka. There are many other ancient scriptures you can find this description of Kevala Kumbhaka. Kevala Kumbhaka is nothing, retention of breath comfortably, naturally, without any force, and then go beyond inhalation and exhalation or retention even. That is the practice of Kevala Kumbhaka. And then meditation, and that meditation leads us to the final goal of Samadhi. So Pratyahara and Pranayam both are most important aspect of our daily practice. Let us practice with deep love, practice with surrender. We have discussed also that Kriya Yoga, as explained by Sage Patanjali, has 3 aspects: Tapa, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhanani. Our practice is mechanical practice only, which gives intellectual, physical, mental benefits. If we do not put the element of love, or we don't practice with love, we don't practice with surrender, with devotion, then it is mechanical. So let us practice with complete devotion, surrender. I am praying to God to give us all round development, progress in our life. Praying for all of you and in the entire creation. Also sending you all my love on this occasion of Deepavali. We are celebrating here Go Navaratri for 10 days special worship in Temple of Compassion. Let us pray together. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all become happy and healthy, loving, noble, and compassionate. May there be no suffering, no sorrow. May there be more love, peace, and harmony among all of us and in this entire creation. Thank you all. I bow to divinity in all of you. Om. Amen.